Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. We're coming to you on Friday, December 9th. This is still Victor Shi. It's been more than 2 years since the nation heard the words "Here Right Matters" said by our guest, one of our guests, Alexander Vindman, during the first impeachment trial. And I think more than ever before, we must all internalize those words, because here in America, it's really up to all of us to do our part and defend democracy and protect this country against the extreme attempts by Republicans to divide us and sow fear and chaos. And it's all up to all of us to show that right does matter here in America. And I think two people who embody that ideal are my friends Alex and Rachel Vindman, who are on the screen with us today. They sound the alarm bells on everything that's going on and take action to push back against what Republicans are trying to do. And today we have so much to talk about, from domestic to international. So with that, welcome Alex and Rachel. It's so great to see you both through the screen.
Hi, Victor.
Thanks for having us on. Rachel also says "Here Right Matters" a lot, so it's
but mostly when I'm trying to get him to do something.
Yeah. And then sounding alarm bells, I guess. Yeah. I mean, like we're like the annoying sirens or something like that.
Yeah.
Accountability.
Much needed. Well, let's get right into the international news, because yesterday, so Brittany Griner is coming home after being detained for more than 290 days in Russia, which should, I think, be a relief for all of us. But what's been particularly distressing and disturbing to me is the response from a lot of Republicans against one of our own. And I'm curious what both of your reactions to Brittany coming home and how much you think what Republicans are saying somewhat emboldens Russia or Putin, if at all.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. You have like completely the fringe Republicans represented by comments from like Donald Trump Jr. That,
actually Trump himself was on a podcast yesterday, and he also
that demonizes Brittany Griner as like un-American because she kneeled in protest, like so many other people have done, to call attention to inequality, and frankly, violent attacks on African American Black people and stuff like that. And that makes her un-American. You have a more narrow traditional Republican kind of political effort to both applaud the fact that Brittany Griner gets to come home after being held hostage by the Russians, but somehow also casts the administration and its efforts that succeeded in bringing her home as a failure, which is kind of a tough argument to make, saying that there could be more, that the administration could have extracted more in the way of, also freeing Paul Whelan and stuff like that. I think it's a pretty kind of silly argument to make. I'm sure the administration did everything possible to try to free both hostages. We have to remember that it's probably not the administration, but the criminal organized crime network that's known as the Russian Federation, and also a state sponsor of terror, that really probably deserves the blame for taking hostages and coming up with a better solution for American hostages that authoritarian regimes tend to take and will probably take in the future. That's going to be an imperative for any administration.
So, Rachel, you tweeted this thing that I thought was so amazing, which is, you said, I don't care what the racist, hateful bigots say. This was the right move. I'm so proud to have a president who leads with compassion. I'm mostly elated for Brittany and her family and friends. Talk to us more about that, and just kind of on a human level what this means.
Yeah, I mean, you knew that as soon as it happened, there were going to be haters, and it was never going to be enough. Even if they got Paul Whelan also, they would complain that it took too long to get Paul Whelan. It doesn't matter. They will always move the bar. So, but we have to celebrate the wins that they are. And, Alex has explained it to me. I'm lucky enough to live with an expert. Sometimes he discusses this stuff with me. Sometimes he doesn't. But, he did point out, like, the Russians view Paul Whelan as an espionage case, which is totally different, separate situation. So that's why. But you can't, like, not get everything you want, walk away from a deal just because you're not getting everything you want. And, one of my favorite sayings that Alex always said, it's an army saying, but the enemy gets a vote. So you can have your whole wish list of what you want, but we're negotiating with other people who want things also. So I know it wasn't perfect, but nothing is perfect. And we have to deal with other people. So I think we should take the win. And I think we should be happy for Brittany and her family. And you know who's also happy for Brittany and her family is Paul Whelan's brother and their family. They understand this. So let's celebrate. I mean, if someone were to say, you're not worth it because I don't like what you've done, like, she is an American citizen just like anyone else.
Right.
She is worthy of the State Department and the President of the United States, to highest levels of government, to negotiate for her and to negotiate for her release. And I think the right thing is done. And I'm just so excited for them, especially during the holiday season.
It's the right thing, maybe not the best thing, because frankly, there is no best thing to do in this situation.
That's it.
This is a nearly impossible situation with lots of trade-offs, frankly, for the way that we conduct these types of negotiations with other authoritarian regimes, organized crime regimes that will potentially read the tea leaves on the fact that they could get away with this. But it's absolutely the right thing to do on a human level for Brittany and her family. And then, frankly, it hopefully focuses the administration on coming up with a better policy prescription going forward in general on how to deal with these cases that will continue to unfold.
Definitely. So in the same vein as Russia, let's talk a little bit about the war in Ukraine, because I think that's something that has died down in the media, and especially cable news, when I think all of us should be paying attention to it. Yesterday, I read a headline that said that Putin said that the war in Ukraine will be a lengthy process. And Alex, I'm wondering if you can give us an update on the war and how you interpret Putin's comments.
Yeah, I think the nuance was that it might be a lengthy process or something of that nature. That's good that he's finally coming around to that, and that he doesn't think he's going to be able to win a whole country in 7 to 10 days.
And he's just now accepted that.
He's accepting that.
It's been since February, but he's finally understood that he can't take Kiev in 3 days.
Master strategist,
yes, which is good.
But it is. I wouldn't overstate the duration of this war. I think the fact is that it's likely to be a different kind of war 6 to 9 months from now. In certain ways, a more dangerous war, because Russia is scrambling to snatch some sort of victory from the jaws of defeat. So it's potentially becoming more erratic. That's why I urge this administration, and frankly criticize this administration sometimes, to do more to help Ukraine win, to defeat Russia, to force Russia to negotiate, come to the realization that, it's not going to get what it wants in Ukraine. We could do a heck of a lot more with regards to arming the Ukrainians with the weapon systems to be decisive on the battlefield instead of grinding to victory, which is what we're working towards. But it's going to be, by the time we get to late summer, with Russia stymied in its efforts to conduct another offensive, with Ukraine continuing to destroy large portions of the Russian ground forces and gaining back territory, it's going to be a war in which the Russians see no promise of success and will turn to negotiations. It just is going to be thousands and thousands more casualties and a huge risk, magnified risk to the U.S. That's what concerns me. But it's probably going to be, about another 9 months from now, actually, before we get there.
I know one of the things when the war first started, and I thought cable news and the attention that it gave this war and the coverage that it gave this war was really important, because I think it showed a lot of Americans just that democracy here is fragile too. It can be as fragile as a place like Ukraine. And I'm wondering, Rachel, we've talked about this a lot, how this last midterm elections, people, I think, ended up voting for democracy and the preservation of democracy. But do you fear that the lack of media coverage around Ukraine is hurting kind of how we think about democracy here at home?
I think it focused our attention on the fragility of democracy, but we still, we have our Republican friends, I think, to thank for continuing to allow us to focus on this, because they say and do things all the time. I think what we're going to see whenever they are sworn in, is that the term, in January, this new House, that they're just going to, create a mockery of our system. And I think that you would see, like, we're going to have more of that. I mean, really, like, just attacks on anyone who goes against what they want. It doesn't have to be actually illegal. They will trump up charges and charge people, which is totally authoritarian. It's completely what happens in banana republics. And, this, I think they are going to. So right now in this like interim, lame duck time, we're not talking about so much, but I think we're going to continue to see. And then I think it's incumbent upon us to draw the parallels and to show when this has happened in history, where it's led.
Yeah.
There's no reason to assume that they have any good intentions or that it's only for this time or only for something. This is always going to be 100% their goal is to get in power and to retaliate against their perceived enemies. But that's un-American. And I think the more they do this, the more they help us, but it's going to be very painful in the process. But we cannot disengage because it's uncomfortable or because we're like, oh, the circus in DC. I get it, but nope, no time for that. You have to watch, you have to participate, and you have to organize to vote against it so that we don't end up with this. But we still have this pathway to get rid of it. It's just we're going to have to deal with this horrible stuff for a couple of years.
So I'm in that same note. So, in the midterm elections, obviously we had, I think, great results in the Senate. In the House, we staved off some Republican defeats. And I'm wondering for you both, I mean, looking at the House in particular, and you mentioned, Rachel, the just Republicans, what they're trying to do is so absurd. They're going to launch all of these investigations, but kind of help our audience understand this in terms of like what Republicans are trying to do and how it aligns with authoritarianism, because I think still people have a hard time imagining what authoritarianism would look like. And obviously we have President Trump calling for the termination of the US Constitution if he returns to office. So talk to us about how dangerous of a moment what Republicans are trying to do is, and then how we should all be pushing back on it using our platforms or other means.
I'm going to let the political scientist take that, but 60 seconds, Alex, go.
Well, I think the first thing is that large swaths of the American public have woken up to the dangers of authoritarianism as expressed and as an direct attack on their rights. So I think those folks are going to be engaged in the next election cycle and then the election cycle after that. There's the complacency and wishful thinking, the apathy around people turning out has been shaken off somewhat. We need to maintain that. We need to make sure, and the Republicans actually, the extreme wing of the Republican Party, which is largely captured the party, is going to help galvanize turnout for the upcoming elections. The question is, can you also peel away independents and Republicans that kind of get tired of the mockery of our institutions that we're about to see in a Republican-controlled House with these frivolous investigations? When there is business at hand to help advance the interests of the American public, maybe we could even get bigger margins, because the bigger the margin, the quicker the turn away from radical far right extremist kind of policies. And fortunately, Trump hasn't taken the loss gracefully. He'll couch it as a potential win. He'll continue to basically say, "Oh, I'm the future of the Republican Party." So you have that added advantage going into the upcoming elections, but it's a dangerous time, and it's a dangerous time that are not just domestically, but that our adversaries will seek to exploit also. So
I want to say something that's like kind of related, but not really. Isn't it amazing that the best concession speech of the entire midterm election was by Herschel Walker?
Oh,
I don't know where this Herschel Walker was during the whole campaign, but here's the thing though, and I was thinking about it, is Trump didn't have anything else to go to. Carrie Lake doesn't have anything else to go to. What she is trying to do is make a name for herself. Herschel Walker is still Herschel Walker. I mean, he's still like a football god and a Heisman Trophy winner and a very successful NFL player. And I mean, I'm not so sure about his personal life, but that's his to live. But, regardless, he has something. He has his name and he has a lot of accomplishments. You see these people, these election deniers, the thing that motivates them is staying relevant and making money. And that, I think, is a key thing, because he didn't need to do all that. I mean, he wanted to be a senator, and whatever. Like, we could go into that forever. But I really wanted to. I want to hammer that in, that these people, and I, give them whatever. I mean, anytime that, to the extent that we talk about it, we should talk about what their motivations are for continuing this ridiculousness, because it is always a motivation, and it's never, altruistic. Anyway,
I mean, that is such an important point. I couldn't agree with both of you more. And when you mentioned Herschel Walker's concession speech, I was thinking, this is 2022, and this is the what we expect from the Republican Party, that they can't even give a correct concession speech. And it's sad and I think really depressing, but at least Herschel Walker did it. And he said we should all come together and support our elected officials, which is important to come from someone like Herschel Walker. Let's talk about some more domestic things, and in particular Twitter, because I know Rachel, I've talked to you a lot about Twitter, and the other weekend, Elon Musk took to Twitter and attacked Alex.
Who's Elon Musk? Never heard of him. Who is he?
I hope he's not watching this show, otherwise he would be a little bit triggered. Let's talk about
He's
Elon
going to
Musk.
buy the network.
Now
He's going to buy the network,
Now
and
he's
he's
gonna
going to
buy
cut it.
Yes. So tell us what happened with that situation. Even though we pretend not to pretend it exists, tell us what happened with that, and how did you both respond to that?
I think it emerged from the fact that he continues to move. I mean, like there's so far there is no floor to how far he's willing to push towards extremism and hate speech. And the fact is that he needs to be held accountable as anybody else, probably more so because of his platform. So I in this turn towards allowing a lot of extremists, anti-Semitic kind of neo-Nazi influencers back on the platform, I just tweeted out something that happened that kind of caught the attention of other people and went viral. This notion that he's a billionaire with an enormous amount of reach and an influence, and he's erratic, and it's frankly in a lot of ways unacceptable for somebody like that to regulate the 21st century public square. And it really did, basically people just copied and retweeted the same thing, and to a volume that caught his attention. And he responded with an anti-Semitic kind of trope about like puppet and puppeteer, and that was not going to stand. That was not going to be something I would let him get away with. That's not something that I would normalize by allowing him to kind of get to say it unchecked. So I challenged him on it, and he got beat up on his own platform that he spent $44 billion on. So be it.
The other thing I would like to say is that it's really important, and I am really just quite disappointed that so many others are not using their platform to push back.
Yeah.
Because the second you cede any ground and you let it go and just say, oh, that's Elon being Elon, or whatever the case may be, whoever it is, they did it with Trump all the time. You are creating and feeding a monster. And just last week we attended an event at our synagogue where everyone in our daughter's religious school class had the assignment was to talk to or research a relative. In Ellie's case, it was easy because we're living, who immigrated to the United States. And it was story after story after story of ancestors who came from Tsarist Russia, from Germany before and after the war, from some Holocaust survivors, people who came when the anti-Semitism was just rising all over Europe. But lots from, it was like a Kiev reunion, actually. So, so many kids talking about their ancestors from Kiev, and they had to portray them. They had to talk like they were that person. And it was just, like this has been going on forever, but we've stepped back. We've stopped talking about it, but the racism and the anti-Semitism has not stopped. And I think this is what we see, look, when I heard someone say, why Georgia again? Why Georgia? Because they have racist voting laws. That's why. The whole issue of their runoff thing is because they have racist laws, guys. That's why Georgia twice in a row. This is a voter suppression issue. And we're still dealing with this, but we act like we moved on, but we have not moved on. And I think as Mary Trump, in her book, unless we go back and deal with it, we cannot move forward. But they're definitely bringing these things to light. And so I think it was important that Alex called him out, and I think that everyone should use their platforms to call it out. I think so
too, but we should understand why people are not doing it, because they're intimidated. It's an authoritarian tool to basically denounce people, get the crowd of
I guess we're desensitized.
Extremists to attack you on Twitter and to silence you. So that's what he's doing when he basically singles out individuals, just like Donald Trump did, just like a lot of
far right. It's a bullying technique.
It's totally. and he controls the platform. And the fear is that, people that rely on the platform, have a large following, are intimidated. The fact is, we are not intimidated. We will.
I don't know if that's wise on our parts, but we're not.
But that's why we all love you. I mean, it's truly, but it's like this normalization of this type of rhetoric is so sad. And, I disagree with George Will on virtually everything, but he did say one thing about how the Republican Party now is basically intimidated and scared of their own base. And so you have something like racism and anti-Semitism, and 50 years ago they may have called it out, but now they just won't call it out because their voters would vote them out of office. And it's when you talk about intention and how these people are really, I think, just kind of are hungry for power, I think it doesn't come through more than their lack of response to anti-Semitism and racism. But let's end on a bit of a brighter note with the remaining time we have left. What is your hope for 2023? We're ending the year now and we're going to New Year. There's a lot of bad going on, but what do you think we should all be looking forward to?
So a couple things, I guess, come to mind. First of all, I tend to be an optimist, so I have a rosy outlook on things.
Always, it's true.
Yeah,
freakishly so.
Yeah. So I am hopeful for a good new year. We have a potential move in the works, new school for our daughter, more family time. I'm pretty hopeful on the fact that Ukraine, actually not hopeful sounds, like there's not a substance on it. I'm confident that Ukraine is going to make gains on the battlefield and that this war is likely to wrap up. At least the hot phase of this war is going to wrap up this coming year with Ukraine liberating more territory and freeing its people from Russian oppression in the occupied territories. The U.S. and EU need to do more there, and then, frankly, commit to reconstruction. I think those are big. And then the commitment of and the engagement of the American people around probably the excesses of the Republican Party and the way they're going to conduct the House. I think we could potentially start seeing a little bit of constraint put on this Republican Party and their and the wing that is representative of like 20% of the American public that is okay with extremism. It might get its ears pinned back a little bit. So those things lend to a little bit of optimism, as well as a fair bit of uncertainty because we have a lot of things going on.
Yeah, but I mean, whatever. When have we not? But I think that
when we were still, had stable career in the military, and,
I guess
didn't have to worry about stuff. Yeah,
I mean, I'm hopeful for the coming year because I think what I'm most hopeful about in terms of my country is our country. Is I think that we see people who are willing to engage to push back against extremism. And I don't think they're going to pull back and disengage. I think that people are plugged in. Sometimes, some people for the first time ever. And it doesn't have to be, you and I've talked about this so much about the idea of a civics lifestyle.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the only thing we do, but it has to be a daily part of our lives. And I think so many people are learning how to do that. And it's going to yield great things. It doesn't have to be everything of who you are. It just needs to be incorporated into everything that you are. And I am excited to see more people engaging and, going to healing our country. I think we were a little bit too disconnected for a while. But the good thing about this is it's really bringing a lot of people together that they can find their tribe, their people. Yeah. And do good things at the same time. So I'm very hopeful about the future, and I can kind of draw that back to the midterms, even if it wasn't always what
my optimism infection and
maybe
it is very infectious. I was just about to say your optimism is giving me more optimism. So thank you both for joining. Rachel and Alex Vindman, you are guys, every single time you guys come on and every single time I talk to you both, I learn something new. So thank you for joining me and enlightening our audience. And for everyone listening, we'll be back next week bright and early at 8 a.m. Pacific time, or if you're on the East Coast, midday at 11 a.m. with another episode of On the Move. Thank you again, Rachel and Alex, for joining.
Thanks. Congratulations on the show. It's so good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.